Good morning, everyone. This is Deacon Don LaRose, bringing you a short message here of something I hope you'll find interesting. You know, is there ever a time when you're talking with somebody and they're really beginning the development of their faith, trying to learn more about Christianity? Maybe it could be when, an adult, a child, whoever it might be. Sometimes in their process of learning more, especially as they start reading the New Testament and so on, they often ask a question that comes up and says, is there any information outside of the Bible about Jesus that kind of confirms the things that we read in the New Testament? They might be thinking that the New Testament written by Jesus's, close associates and so on, may be biased. And so is there anything outside of the Bible that backs these things up? And the answer is yes, there is. In 37 AD, was born a man by the name of Flavius Josephus. Born just a few years after Jesus' crucifixion. And he came from a wealthy family, and he was educated to become a Pharisee. And then the Jewish war with the Romans broke out in 66 AD. And by then he was 30 years old, and he was made, because he came from a wealthy family, he was put in charge of the northern army up in Galilee. Well, that entire army was wiped out by the Romans, and he was literally the last man standing. And they arrested him, made him a prisoner. And then they brought him down to the Jerusalem area to act as an interpreter for them, to interact with the Jewish people who were inside of Jerusalem, inside the city walls. During that war, in the last year of the war, and it was from 66 to 70 AD, the Romans circled and surrounded Jerusalem, and there was a siege that went on for months and months. Josephus' job was to try to interpret and get them to surrender, which they would not do. When the war was over, and it was a complete disaster for the Jewish people, Jerusalem was destroyed. The temple, the gorgeous, beautiful temple, was completely destroyed. If you Google, the Jewish temple, you'll see incredible models of what it looked like, and it's incredibly impressive. And anyways, it was destroyed by the Romans in that war. And afterwards, Josephus wrote a 7-volume history all about that war in incredible detail. Now, after that, he also went on, he was quite a writer. After that, he went on to write a 12-volume history of the Jewish people, as early as known, to up to his time. And it was his prolific writer. It was 28 times longer than any of the gospel writings, just to give you a sense of it. He called it the Jewish Antiquities. Now, in his historical writings about the Jewish people, he references a number of important figures that we all know of, such as Pontius Pilate, Caiaphas the high priest, Herod the Great, and of course, Jesus of Nazareth. Josephus was he was writing history. He was not writing theology. He was not trying to convert anyone from one faith to another. He was a first century Jewish man writing for a Roman audience. And he was documenting events as he understood them. Josephus is he's the first non-Christian first century source for information about Jesus outside of the New Testament. Now, there's been a number of different interpretations about the things that Josephus wrote about Jesus. And we're trying to determine, which interpretations are most accurate. But the most current one, and the one that seems to be most likely and held in high esteem, was this. This is what he wrote about Jesus. He said, "At that time, there was Jesus, a wise man, if one ought to call him a man. He was a doer of paradoxical works or marvelous deeds, and a teacher of people who received the truth with pleasure. He attracted many Jews and Greeks, and he's believed by them to be the Christ." Now, he didn't say he was the Christ or, everyone believed he was the Christ. He's saying that his followers believed him to be the Christ. He goes on to say, "When Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, condemned him to the cross, those who had first loved him did not cease to. And he was perceived by them to be alive on the third day." So again, he didn't say that he believed that Jesus rose on the third day, but he said his followers perceived that Jesus was alive on the third day. "And the tribe of Christians, so named after him, has not yet disappeared." So Josephus, in his writings, confirms this. He confirms that Jesus lived in the time of Pontius Pilate, that he was a teacher with a following. He was crucified. His followers believed that he rose on the third day, and they continued as a movement even decades later. That is pretty remarkable testimony from a non-Christian Jewish writer. There's also other historical references to Jesus by a number of Roman historians and government officials. Officials from 100 to 150 AD, including highly regarded historian Tacitus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, and Celsus, just to name a few. So yes, there are writings about Jesus in the very first century that confirm many of the things that Jesus did and things that we read in the New Testament. And in fact, everything that Josephus wrote, none of it contradicts anything that is in the New Testament. So Jesus isn't just found in Scripture, he's found in history. Thank you.